Hi, I'm Esther Boykin, CEO of Group Therapy Associates, licensed marriage and family therapist. Today, I want to talk about something we have all been through: arguments. We've all been in that conversation, at least I know I have, I'm guessing you have, where you want to talk about something. You either have a request or a complaint about something, or maybe it just starts really benign and you think we're just talking, and then all of a sudden things go left. All of a sudden things are escalating. The other person saying things that hurt your feelings, maybe there's yelling, and suddenly you're in this huge argument, seemingly out of nowhere. Or maybe you are in a relationship where you already suspect that certain conversations are going to end up in conflict, and so you started to avoid them. Well, no good can come from avoiding things that we really need to talk about. But you don't have to stay stuck in the cycle of arguing, escalating, going away, cooling off, and never really resolving the issue. So today I want to outline 4 steps that are great if you're in a couple relationship. They're perfect to use with your spouse or your partner, but they also work in other relationships. They can work with friends and family members when there's conflict, when that conversation looks like it's headed for disaster. These 4 steps will help you get things back on track. Step number 1, hit pause. This is sometimes the hardest step, but it's the most important step. When you feel your blood's boiling, or you are struggling not to say, or maybe you've already said some really hurtful things, or the other person said some hurtful things, but you know this conversation is headed nowhere fast, you've got to figure out how to hit pause. It's super important to be able to know when you've reached a point emotionally that nothing productive can happen. Now, the trick here is you've got to come up with a way to hit pause that you both agree on, because otherwise you run the risk of escalating things even further. No one likes to be walked away from or feel dismissed. And so if you simply go, "I'm done with this conversation," and turn around, you're likely to escalate the situation instead of de-escalating. So if this is someone you have an ongoing relationship, let's say this is with your boyfriend or your wife, when you're not in an argument, decide on some code word or a symbol. I've had couples use the timeout. I've had couples simply say, "Hey, we need to hit pause." I'm perfectly fine with that. Steal my words. I love it. But figure out what's the best way for you to take a break, walk away, and go cool off. It's not enough to hit pause and then go sit in a corner or go call your best friend or your mom or, your girlfriend down the street and continue to stay in that cycle of escalated, angry, frustrated emotions. Hit pause and go cool off. Go relax, take a break, think about something else, do something else. Once you're calm, we move on to step 2. Identify the breakdown. Something went wrong. Now, maybe it went wrong right out of the gate. You started in an accusatory tone. Your partner or your mother or whoever you're in the conversation with came at you with something that wasn't true, or they came at you immediately already angry or hurt by something. And sometimes it doesn't start that way. It starts out okay, but usually you can go back and play it in your head, and once you've calmed down, you can think about, well, how did this go wrong? Well, you know what? I was really frustrated already from work, or I'm tired, or I'm stressed, or I was distracted, or my partner was distracted. I'm trying to talk about something that's important or serious to me, and they're distracted and not paying attention, and that's usually the breakdown. It could have gone okay, but there was some moment where something contributed to things getting off track and going in the wrong way. If your answer to the question, what went wrong, is he was a jerk, she was nagging me, they don't know how to talk to me, then you haven't cooled down far enough. Relax and identify those feelings, and then go a little bit deeper. What's the source? What's the behavior that happened, or the factor that triggered certain behaviors that led things to get way off track? Step number 3, own your part. This is the most crucial and typically the most difficult part of this process. Understanding that you had a role in the breakdown. What did you do or say that contributed to what could have been a productive conversation where you were heard and felt understood, turning into an argument or a fight or whatever language you like to use. But how did you help turn this thing upside down? Were your feelings hurt by something that the other person said, causing you to get defensive? Were you unclear going into the conversation about your purpose or your goals? And I think this is one of the things that people often, especially in intimate relationships, we don't always think about this on the front end. At work, if you call a meeting or you even just go in to have a conversation with your boss or a coworker, typically we think about, what's my intention? What is it that I hope the other person will hear from me, understand, do for me? What is the purpose of my initiating this conversation? And what do I hope or need to learn or understand from the other person? And that's a process that we need to practice bringing into our personal lives. Asking yourself those two questions can help you to really define, where are we trying to go? And it allows you to be in a space where you can let go of certain things. Maybe, your husband says something to push your buttons. If you can come back to, okay, this is not the conversation where I want to talk about, his snide remark about my housekeeping or a bill or whatever other sort of hot button issue. I'm trying to talk about X. And then you get to stay focused on X. And what do you need to understand from him in order to make the process go more smoothly? So think about those things and identify where you could have done something differently. Really ask yourself, did I say or do something that I need to apologize for? And we'll do a great video soon on, making a great apology. There's really 3 major components to that. I'm not going to talk about them here, but for the time being, identify that. Be honest with yourself. Even if you feel like the thing you need to apologize for was triggered by something your partner or whoever you're talking to said, now is not the time to call them on their stuff. Now is the time to own your own stuff and say, you know what, I shouldn't have said that, or I apologize for doing this. I know that what didn't help us stay on track, or it didn't help our conversation. So think about, what can you do differently, and be prepared to very specifically articulate how you contributed to the breakdown and how you intend in this next conversation to make things go more smoothly. That leads us right into step number 4. Regroup and try again. I know this is difficult, and hopefully at this point in the process, you have really calmed down. You went for a walk, you made yourself a cup of tea, you called a friend or a relative, not the cheerleader who's gonna egg you on and keep you stuck in that escalated cycle, but the friend who's gonna be honest with you about what you could have done differently, as well as give encouragement and support if the person you were talking to did something that hurt your feelings or made you angry. Now that you're calm, it's time to get back in that conversation. And this is one of the places, especially for couples, where the breakdown often stays. And this is how you get stuck in those cycles of ongoing bickering and fighting and arguing. We calm down, but we don't try it again. And it's important to try again. Revisit the conversation and try again. Even if you argued about something very small and insignificant that isn't as important to you now that you've calmed down, it's practice. It's practice for the big conversations where it's going to be that much harder to try again or to regroup and move forward after your feelings have been hurt or you've been defensive or however things went left in your conversation. It's always a challenge to bring it back. So as often as possible, try again. I promise you, if you've really done the first 3 steps, you've hit pause, you've identified the breakdown, you've owned your part, you're prepared to apologize, trying again will be easier than you think it is. I can't promise that the next time you get back in that conversation, it's going to go smoothly, but I can promise it'll go better than the first time. And sometimes we have to try again, multiple times, and that's okay. Hopefully, this is in a relationship that's always worth the effort, and therefore you want to stick with it. I hope you found these 4 tips helpful. I'd love to hear what you do to de-escalate an argument or to get back together, to calm things down and sort of move forward. So definitely leave your comments and your questions in the section below. I love to read the feedback, and I will certainly do my best to respond to all of them. Hope that your next conversation goes as smoothly as possible, but if it doesn't, don't forget our 4-step process to get things right back on track.